Okay, the math professor is on the air once more. And
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
all right.
You have not entered any numbers. Please re-enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue. You are in the meeting now. You are the first participant. Please stand by.
Hooray for first participation. Oh, right. Hit Zoom meeting, launch meeting, the meeting that launches it all. All right, and we want to share screen, and that is the screen we want to share. And we're off. Yes, and welcome to our lecture on Chapter 12, Outsourcing, Managing Interorganizational Relationships. I am your genial host, Harry Whiting, and we will proceed from here. All right, so outsourcing is chapter 12, as you can see here on our diagram. Our learning objectives, first of all, understand the advantages and disadvantages of outsourcing project work. 2, describe the basic elements of a request for proposal. 3, identify the best practices for outsourcing project work. 4, practice principled negotiation. And 5, describe the met expectations model of customer satisfaction and its implications for working with customers on projects. So we're in for an exciting ride today. Buckle up. Our chapter outline, first we will talk about outsourcing project work. Then we'll talk about requests for proposals. Then best practices in outsourcing project work. The art of negotiating. A note on managing customer relations, and we're into outsourcing project work. When we talk about outsourcing, that is the process of transferring business functions or processes, for example, customer support, IT, accounting, to other, often foreign companies. It's being applied to contracting significant chunks of project work and being applied to the creation of new products and services. So, all right, so we're going to take this through an example of a reclining chair project. So we may be talking about a marketing firm that we are outsourcing work to, tool and die firms to make the actual tools or dies that we need to shape the chair. Part suppliers, a manufacturer, the project manager, who I always assume is you, but you can outsource the actual project management. A catalog company to create our catalog for our reclining chair project. The inventor, a legal firm, and an advertising firm. Okay, so any or all of these might go into a reclining chair project. All right, so what is our advantage in outsourcing project work? Well, for one thing, there is a cost reduction. Often we can get this work done cheaper by people that are young and hungry rather than going through our own company. Faster project completion if we don't have as many resources as we would like on our project team already. We may be able to get people with a high level of expertise in the particular kind of work that we are outsourcing, and it gives us some flexibility. Flexibility, always a good thing. What are the disadvantages? Well, there can be a coordination breakdown. We understand that the firm we've outsourced a certain piece of work to is supposed to have that done on Friday. We contact them on Thursday and they say, no, we thought it was next Friday. There is a loss of control. By not having the work being done in our hands, we may not be able to control the actual outcome. There can be conflict. People misunderstand what their part of the project is, and as a result, don't perform part of the work we expected, or we drop the ball entirely. There can be security issues if this project has any secret aspects that perhaps it would be better if we do not divulge to anyone. That could be an issue. And it might be a political hot potato, either inside our company or conceivably even on a national level, because we outsource to somebody who is in bad odor politically with our government. All right. One of the things that we do when we're outsourcing is we may have a trusted firm that we talk to, and we never talk to anyone else. But very often what happens is that we have to put it out as a request for proposal. So we announce that request for a proposal to external contractors and vendors with the experience to implement the project. Okay, so we may have to vet all the people that want to put in bids on it. Inside a request for proposal, we're going to have a summary of the needs for our project and a request for action. We're going to have a statement of work, or detailing the scope and major deliverables that we expect from our subcontracting party. We're going to have deliverable specifics and requirements, the features and tasks. Fourth, we're going to have the responsibilities by both the vendor and us, the customer. 5, a project schedule. 6, the costs and payment schedule. 7, the type of contract. 8, the experience and staffing. And 9, the evaluation criteria. So those are the development steps that we will go through with our request for proposal. Now, we're very likely going to use a contract evaluation template. This is very similar to the idea of the project proposal matrix. So we have our contractor evaluation template, we have weights, and we have different proposals. So on there we might have contractor qualifications, technical skills available, understanding of contract and conditions, financial strength, whether or not they'll be able to implement the project, understanding of proposal specifications, innovativeness and originality of the proposal, a reputation for delivering on time and budget, and of course, the price. So in this case, they have all of these weights adding up to 100. As I've expressed before, the rigidity of making weights add up to 1 or 100, I am somewhat indifferent to. All right, so what are our best practices in outsourcing the project work? Well, for one thing, we better have well-defined requirements and procedures. We want to have extensive training and team building activities, depending on how closely we're going to be working with these people, particularly if they're going to be working on site or we're going to be working on their site. We want to make sure that we have well-established conflict management processes in place with them, so that when there is a conflict, and it seems like there always is, we will be able to manage that and set that aside as quickly as possible. We want a frequent review and status updates. Sometimes we're going to want co-location. That is to say that our contractor comes and works on our premises, or we have our part of our team or all of our team working on their premises. We want to, of course, have fair and incentive-laden contracts. Remember, if we outsource, this is a partnership. And we should always view partnerships as being long-term. That we may not be with these guys long for this project, but what about the next project? If we screw them over on this project, what is their behavior going to be on the next one? Pardon me a moment, I seem to have a visitor. How nice you could drop by.
Thank you.
So our mysterious visitor turns out to be one of our students. Or maybe I should say one of my students. All right, so as I say, we want fair contracts because we don't want to have the problem down the line of having to do business with these people again and them saying, well, why should we do business with you? You screwed us over on the last contract, or there were a lot of problems, you didn't seem like you cared about them, etc. So what I'm saying is we want to create long-term outsourcing relationships, right? We have to say to ourselves, we're not in this just for a quick hit, but we want to establish those long-term relationships that make all the difference. Okay, so now admittedly, when I say establishing long-term relationships, this has not been the way that these kind of contracted relationships have been run in the past. The 19th century school said it's every company for itself, and if they aren't sharp enough to negotiate properly, then it's on them. So our traditional approach contains a lot of suspicion and distrust. Every party is wary of the motives of the other. Whereas in our partnering approach, we have mutual trust, and that gives us the basis for strong working relationships. The traditional approach, each party's goals and objectives, while they are similar, are geared to what is best for them. Whereas now we say, shared goals and objectives ensure a common direction. So the traditional approach says we have independent project teams. Teams are spatially separated with managed interactions. Now with the partnering approach, we say we want a joint project team and they have a high level of interaction with each other. Traditional approach, communications are very structured and guarded, while in the partnering approach, we have open communications, we avoid misdirection, and we bolster the effective working relationships. In the traditional approach, single partner contracting is normal. But in the partnering approach, we have long-term commitment between the two companies or organizations to a relationship so that we can have the opportunity for continuous improvement of how we do business. Hard to believe that there's even more. Oh. This cold is making my nose run. The cold weather, not having a cold. Let me stress that, since in these COVID times, there's a lot of suspicion. All right, so in the traditional approach, our objectivity is limited due to fear of reprisal and a lack of continuous improvement opportunity. In our partnering approach, we have an objective critique that allows us to have a candid assessment of performance. Traditionally, access is limited with structures, procedures, and self-preservation taking priority over total optimization. In our partnering approach, access to each other's organizational resources is available. In the traditional approach, our involvement is normally limited to the project level personnel, but in the partnering approach, we have a total company involvement. That means that there has to be a commitment from the CEO to the team members. You know, I could talk before you came here.
Should I leave?
No, I can't really blame you as much as I want to. All right, so we want everyone to be involved and everyone to be able to talk to our partners. In the traditional approach, duplication and/or translation takes place with attendant costs and delays. Instead, in the partnering approach, we integrate our administrative systems equipment for greater efficiency. Traditionally, risk is transferred to the other party, but in our new partnering approach, our risk is shared jointly among the partners, and we're encouraging innovation and continuous improvement. Okay, now, you remember from when we just studied risk management, we said sometimes we do transfer risk to another party. Typically, that is through some kind of insurance scheme or something of that nature. All right, so what are our strategies for communicating with our outsourcers? Well, strategy one, we must recognize cultural differences. We have to realize that there are going to be differences in the cultures of the two organizations. And that is going to translate into our communication. The communication styles of the organizations may be different. Strategy two, choose the right words. This is extremely important. what we think of as the proper way to describe something from our viewpoint may be very different from what our partnering company thinks of as the right way to describe a situation. Strategy 3. Confirm your requirements. We have to make sure that all the specifications, all the requirements are understood totally by both parties, that we don't leave anything just saying, oh, they'll know what that means. And strategy 4, set deadlines. Everybody needs to understand what is a firm deadline and what it means if we go past a deadline, which can be very severe for a lot of projects. All right, so very often what we'll do is we'll have a partnering charter. This is an example of that. The partnering charter at Edwards Air Force Base for the F-22 fighter building, fighter building 1870. The military loves to number their buildings. I have no excuse ready for this. But often military bases are very complicated. Having a numbering scheme helps us find that. So these are the partners of the F-22 design and construction team. So they are recognizing the unique nature of this project and committing to creating an environment of trust and communication. Oops. Sorry, I did that now. Trust and communication to design and build a quality project which meets or exceeds the customer's requirements. We commit to maintaining a positive and optimistic work environment in which all partner goals can be achieved. Okay, and they list some of the things that it will be a quality project, complete on schedule and within cost, incorporate lessons learned from other F-22 projects, create an environment for a fair and reasonable profit, create an enjoyable work environment. Have a safe project, so provide a safe environment with no lost time accidents. Maintain positive cooperative relationships. Clear and open communications through appropriate channels. No surprises, no hidden agendas. Minimum delays of paperwork. Resolve problems quickly at the lowest level. Okay, and then you'll notice it is signed by all the key personnel who are working together on this project. Okay, so what are our pre-project activities that set the stage for our successful project and successful partnering? Okay, selecting a partner or partners, we want them to be voluntary. We don't want to have tricked anyone into joining our project. We want them to be experienced. We want them to be willing and to have a committed top management. we want to engage in team building amongst the project managers. We want a collaborative relationship amongst those project managers. It's so much easier to get things done when everybody is on the same page, everybody's working towards the same goal. That shared vision makes all the difference. We also want to have team building amongst the stakeholders. We want our partnership commitment to include the other key managers and specialists who are working within this, both in our organization and in our outsourcing organizations. All right, so our project implementation, we want to sustain collaborative relationships. So establish a we as opposed to an us and them attitude towards the project. Part of that is the co-location that we talked about before. The employees from the different organizations work together at the same location. We want to be sure that we're establishing mechanisms that help the relationship withstand problems and setbacks. There's always going to be problems, there's always going to be setbacks. So we need to have good problem resolution. We need to have continuous improvement in our processes. We want to have joint evaluation of the work that's being done and whether or not it meets the standards that we're setting. And persistent leadership. It's very hard for a project if we're constantly having people removed from the project and then other people put in, and now we have to establish new relationships. Now, sometimes this can be hard. For example, building a nuclear power plant is a long process. So long that very often some of the project knowledge is lost along the way because people retire, people are moved to different projects, and so on, right? But as much as we can, we want to make sure that we have the same team in place, and if someone leaves, we have a lot of time when their replacement person can be brought up to speed and knowledge passed down about the project. All right, and then we have project completion. We want to celebrate our success. So we conduct a joint review of the accomplishments that we have made and the disappointments or problem areas that we encountered along the way. We want to hold a celebration for all project participants, and that should even include inviting people who may have had to leave for one reason or another during the time the project was going on. We want to be sure and recognize special contributions. The person that came up with the idea that enabled us to save weeks on one part of the project and shorten the overall project duration, for example. All right, so one thing that we want to do is think about what is our potential partner going to be like. This is one method they suggest where we have a partnering survey. So this is an evaluation of the partnering process, the attitudes, teamwork, process, and this is collected separately from the owner and contractor participants, and we compare and aggregate those. So the first question, the communications between the owner / contractor personnel are, it goes from difficult and guarded to easy, open, and upfront. The second question, top management support of the partnering process is, it goes from 1, not evident or inconsistent, all the way to 5, obvious and consistent. Okay, and of course, this is a Likert scale. Any organization can score at any level. 3, problems, issues, or concerns are 1, ignored. I hate when that happens. All the way up to 5, attacked promptly. 4, cooperation between the owner and the contractor personnel is 1, is cool, detached, unresponsive, and removed. That goes up to 5, which is genuine, unreserved, and complete. All right. And finally, 5, responses to problems, issues, or concerns frequently become 1 is personal issues, and 5 is treated as project problems. It's very obvious that the kind of people we want to work with are going to score in the 4 and 5 range on all of these questions. Or at least that's the people I want to work with. Maybe you would prefer people who are difficult and guarded. All right, so what are advantages of our long-term partnerships? One is reduced administrative costs. If we can trust our... Oh, wait a minute. I was totally confused about who was here.
Hi.
Apparently with everyone masked, I can't tell anyone. I have enough trouble recognizing people without people wearing masks all the time. All right, but enough of that.
Yes. The road's really bad. I'm kidding.
You know what? It took me years to recognize that I have trouble recognizing people.
Oh, yeah?
People would just tell me, oh yeah, that's so-and-so, and I'm like, is it? Okay, but enough about my psychological problems. So our advantages of long-term partnership. Reduced administrative costs. If we have somebody we can trust, we don't need so many people looking over their shoulders all the time. more efficient utilization of resources. Again, if we can trust them, they say, hey, can we use this facility? And we say yes, because we know that they will treat it like it's their own, and if there's a problem, they'll let us know, etc. Improved communication. Anybody that we've worked with a lot before, we're going to have an easier and more open relationship with. Improved innovation. When we're used to working with them, it's easier to bounce ideas off them, and as a result, it's going to be easier to come up with new ideas that are innovative. And improve performance. When everyone's used to working together, it's easy to fall into a groove where we're working well together. All right. The art of negotiating. Pardon me. All right, we have to remember that project management isn't a contest. We're all on the same side, which is our side. So, everybody's success is bound up in the success of the project. Because we're creating long-term relationships, we assume everyone is going to continue to work together in the future. So we don't want to burn any bridges. When we have principled negotiations, first of all, we're going to separate the people from the problem. You often see people who tie a particular person to their problems. But it's not necessarily that that person is bad or evil. Very often it's that these people are projecting, right? Think about the problem. It's not the person that is the problem necessarily, although I have known problem people. Let us focus on our interests, not on just holding to a firm position mindlessly. What are the options that we have where everybody wins? We want to create those win-win situations. And sometimes we have to be very creative to discover those. And whenever possible, we want objective criteria, right? We don't want to make decisions based on our feelings or what we think of a particular person. Okay, well, when we're negotiating, some people are just not reasonable people. I have no excuse ready for this. But if we're pushed, don't push back. Ask questions instead of making statements. The old Socratic method. use silence as a response to unreasonable demands. There's an old saying in sales, when somebody throws something out there, first person to talk loses. Now, I don't believe that's necessarily the case, but if somebody just throws something out that is unreasonable, we say nothing. We let the silence lengthen. We let it become uncomfortable. And if we have any of our people from the company, our subordinates there, we tell them to follow our lead and not to jump in when we're letting the silence become uncomfortable. Ask for advice and encourage others to criticize your ideas and positions. Okay? You don't like what I've laid out here? What is your position? What is your idea about how this should work? And use Fisher and Urey's best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA concept, to work towards a win-win scenario. As I said, we want to come up with something where everyone wins. Lots of people approach negotiations that there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser. I don't want to be involved in a negotiation like that if I can possibly help it. I always want to find a way that everybody is winning. Everybody is coming out ahead at the end of the deal. Otherwise, why would we even do it? All right. So, then we want to talk about managing our customer relations. Well, first of all, we want customer satisfaction. In the 21st century school of management, our focus is on the customer. We want them to leave feeling very happy and excited about the product, the project, the service, whatever it is we're doing with them. Because what happens when somebody is dissatisfied? They go away and they leave a bad review on Yelp, maybe. Maybe they tell all their friends, oh man, I got the XYZ company to do this for me, and they just screwed everything from the beginning to the end. So that negative effect of dissatisfied customers for our reputation is bigger than the positive effect of satisfied customers. You rarely satisfy customers to the point where they're stopping everyone and telling them what a great job you did. But dissatisfied customers, not so much. Okay, all of every customer has their own set of expectations for performance, and whether or not you meet those performance expectations. So we want to understand that from the beginning, because one of the things that happens, and it happens a lot, is we think we understand what the customer wants when in fact we have projected our ideas of what we want to do onto the customer instead of understanding what they actually wanted out of the product, the service, the project that we've done for them. So, that satisfaction is, we can put it in a kind of mathematical relationship where we say that the satisfaction can be measured by the perceived performance divided by the expected performance. So they perceive they get better performance than they expected. Oh man, they're at 110% of their satisfaction. They perceive they got worse performance than they expected, then it's going to go the other way. Well, they did an okay job. And I know when I was a contractor, it was very confusing to me, because sometimes I would do a job and I would say to myself, oh, this is some of the best work I have ever done. And the customer would be all over me. Well, what about this? I don't like that. Bloody hell. All right, so we have to be skilled managing both their expectations and what their perception is of the performance that we have delivered to them. And that's not always easy. Some people are just natural grouches. And essentially there's nothing we'll do our best always, but ultimately they are going to be hard to satisfy. And some people are really very easily satisfied. We need to understand which is which and do our best to satisfy both types. All right, so here they're talking a little bit more about what I was talking about. We have our perceived performance divided by our expected performance. They're saying if it's down at 0.90 or 90%, they're going to be dissatisfied. If it's up here at 1.10 or 110%, they're going to be very satisfied. Man, that's a narrow band. So, when our performance falls short of expectations, the customer is dissatisfied. If our performance exactly matches the expectation, the customer is satisfied. And if we exceed their expectations, the customer is very satisfied. And they say, or even delighted. But you know, being able to read the satisfied, delighted scale can be a tough one. All right, so when we're managing our customer expectations, first of all, don't oversell the project, right? A lot of times, you have a problem if you have a salesman, for example, go out and sell the project and they're promising the moon. Well, then you come along and you have to deliver the project, and what you're delivering is more or less just a hot air balloon. Right? It's always better if we undersell and then we're exceeding their expectation. Make sure that we develop a well-defined project scope statement, right? If we're able to go to the customer and they say, well, I don't know, I don't like it, and we have a scope statement, we say, well, what part of this scope statement that you signed has not been met? I mean, I hate to do that. I would rather have them be super delighted, but there are always going to be customers that you end up doing that. Make sure that the customers understand any significant problems or risks. That's another mistake that project managers make sometimes, is they kind of wave away, oh, there won't be any problems, everything is going to go great, there will never be any problems anywhere on earth again. Okay, think you're over-promising a little there. We want to keep everyone informed about the project's progress. Particularly, again, I've tried to emphasize that in this course, is if we have problems, if we have delays in schedule, if we have any cost overrun problems, we want to make sure we're revealing that and we're telling the customer what we plan to do to make that better. Involve the customers early in decisions about project development changes. Again, this goes back to the problems and/or risks. When our project has a problem, or there is an unexpected risk, or even one that we expected but we thought was a very low expectation, get the customer involved. Make sure they understand. Make sure they agree with the approach that you're going to use to deal with that. Handle the customer relationships and problems in an expeditious, competent, and professional manner. Okay, so, again, as soon as we know something the customer needs to know, we need to inform them. We need to do it in a professional manner, always, and assuring them that we have the competence to fix the problem or deal with the risk that has come up. Speak with one voice. Don't send the assistant project manager out to tell them something different than what you have told them earlier, right? Make sure that everybody on the project is speaking about things in the same way. And speak the language of the customer, not in the sense that the customer speaks French and you speak English, but in the sense that they think about things in a certain way, and that is reflected in their language. Language always reflects the culture and the mindset of the people. So we try and learn that about our customers so that we're speaking to them in a way that they understand and that they will be able to kind of go, oh yeah, this person knows what I'm like and what I need, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So we have different project roles, and they have different challenges and strategies to deal with things. For example, the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is somebody who is out trying to create new things in the universe. The challenge is they're very often having to go navigate through unfamiliar surroundings. So somebody has decided to become a jewelry maker, for example. And maybe they've been making jewelry for years, but they want to take the next step, and they want to have a whole company that makes jewelry. All right, well that means that they're going to go from the familiar surroundings of just them working alone making jewelry to now I have to assemble a team that we're all going to work together to create jewelry in the future. So their strategy has got to be using persuasion to influence others. And this is very often the case. For example, I heard a story the other day about a guy. He worked for his father, and he said, you know what, we've always worked here in this little town. I want to go and work in the big city next door. His father said, no, we've always worked here. He says, no, I think our future is to go work in the big city. So he goes over to the big city, and he finds, and he's looking around, and he works in real estate. They've been working for real estate. And he sees this hotel. And this hotel, oh my God, it is so run down. It's got rats in it. Bums are sleeping in the hotel. But it's right downtown where it's a very vital spot, and there's potentially a lot of business. So the guy goes to the owners of the hotel and he says, listen, I want to buy this hotel. I don't have any money, but if you'll sign a document that you'll sell me this hotel for $4 million if I get money from the bank, I think I can do it. So they're kind of like, yeah, right. But they sign off, $4 million, hey, we get rid of a rat, a rat and bum infested hotel, we're way out ahead. Right? So they sign the document. Then he goes to the bank and he starts talking to the bank. Right? And he says, look, I have this document that they'll sell me the hotel at this price, and it's in a really great location, and and I'm gonna renovate it and make this into one of the premier hotels, in this city. And so the bank, they're not too sure, but, you know, they start looking into it. They say, you know what? It really is kind of worth that much money, right? So the bank then lends him the money to buy the hotel, right? So then he starts renovating the hotel. And of course, then there's more people that he has to go and he has to sell them the vision of making this hotel, right? And he sells them the vision, okay, when we renovate it, we want the whole front to be mirrors, right? And they're like, what are you, crazy? No hotel has mirrors on the front of these. No, it's great. It's a vibrant part of the city, and we'll be reflecting all the success of the city. So he gets it, right? So he gets the hotel renovated, but he doesn't know anything about running hotels. So he goes and he makes a deal with Hilton. He says, look, if you guys will come in and run this hotel, I've got it, I bought the hotel, I've got it all renovated, it's ready to go. You guys come in and run the hotel, and we'll split the profits 50-50. Right? And Hilton thinks about that, they crunch the numbers, they say, all right, we'll do it. So this was the beginning of this man becoming hugely successful.
Off of a bum-infested hotel? Wow.
And this is somebody whose name you know, but I won't tell you who.
Why?
I want you to be on the edge of your seat. I'll tell you when we get to the end of the presentation. All right, so a politician, their challenge is they have to understand diverse cultures. And in the case of project manager, that is our parent and our client organization, right? The more we understand about culture, the better we're going to be able to navigate in life in general. Because one of the challenges for me in teaching engineering students is to make them understand the engineering culture, right? All of my students know how to navigate within the Dene culture because they've grown up in it. I only have, I think, one student who is not Navajo at the moment. Right? So they understand navigating the Dene culture and being able to get through that. The engineering and business culture, though, are slightly different. They have different mores. Mores are ways of behaving inside a culture. Right? And the more you know about being able to go between cultures, the more successful you can be. All right, so a strategy there is to align with the powerful individuals. Project manager roles, friend. Determine the important relationships to build and sustain outside the team itself. My personal way of doing business is I want to have a good relationship with everyone, if not actually rising to the level of being a friend. You know, of course, Rebecca has rejected me so many times in this regard, saying, no, I don't like bald guys. No, I kid her, of course. So the strategy is identify common interests and experiences to bridge that relationship. I have a friend who is just brilliant at this. And I've always admired that because I've always been a bit more shy, standoffish. But, I mean, we would work a job and it seemed like in 15 minutes, he would be talking baseball with people. You know, and I've never been kind of like that. Marketer, you have to understand the strategic objectives of the client organization. You have to show them how our goals, our strategies, our objectives match with theirs. So we align the new ideas and proposals with their strategic objectives. Being a coach, we want to motivate our client team members, but we don't have any authority. So one strategy is to give challenging tasks to build the skills of the team members. Okay, the project manager has to take on all of these roles at times. I mean, one thing about being a project manager is you need to understand a lot about how people work and how to work with people. And it's not something that you just magically have or acquire overnight. This is all stuff that we can learn. And our key terms, best alternative to a negotiated agreement or BATNA. And they have the appendix here, contract management, and hopefully we'll have some time to discuss that. All right, so when we're managing our procurement, well, that's obviously we have to plan the purchases and the acquisitions. We have to plan our contracting, right? And that may be all kinds of things. Finding good contractors or working with the ones that we already know and work with. But then it's also, when are they coming in? When are they doing their thing? Is it going to disrupt the schedule if these guys are a couple of days late getting started? Getting seller responses, make sure that we're being supplied with what we need when we need it. Selecting the sellers. Administering the contract, because a lot of times it's not just, okay, here's your load of steel, all right, here's your money. We want to close the contract, in other words, we've completed it, and we make sure that everything has been completed. A contract, of course, is a formal agreement between two parties where the contractor obliges itself to perform a service and the client obliges itself to do something in return, right? So it's not necessarily you do something and then I give you money. It could be that you do something and, well, for example, once I made a contract with a guy where I rebuilt the engine on his car for what he did. So we define the responsibilities of the parties, spell out the conditions of its operations, defines the rights of the parties to each other, and it gives remedies to a party if the other party breaches its transactional obligations. Now, most of the time when we make contracts, it's like an oral handshake agreement, okay? If there's going to be a lot of money involved, let's get some written agreement down, just to make sure that we don't have to go to court later, and then we're in front of Judge Judy, and she's saying, well, you said this, they say that, oh my dog. All right, so the types of contracts, we can have a fixed price contract, or what's called a lump sum agreement. So our contractor that has the lowest bid will do all the work specified at a fixed price, right? So when I worked doing contracting work, that's mostly what I did. All right, I will rebuild this, I will fix that, and this is the price that I'll do it for. And sometimes that meant that I didn't make any money because I made a mistake in the price that I quoted them. So our disadvantage is it's more difficult and costly to prepare. For contractors, the disadvantage is the risk of underestimating, been there, done that. And sometimes in the contract, we will have contract adjustments where we can do redetermination, or we have performance incentives. If you can finish this job a week earlier, we'll give you an extra $2,000 or something of that nature. Cost plus contracts, the contractor is reimbursed for all the direct allowable costs, material, labor, travel, plus a fee. That might be a percentage, and that's usually how it's done, that covers their overhead and profit. The risk to the client is that what if the contractor is just going wild and letting the costs run wild? So the controls on the contractors are things like performance and schedule incentives, cost and cost sharing clauses, right? The customer actually supplies some amount of materials, equipment, etc. All right, so this shows us the contract type versus risk. And the buyer risk versus the seller risk. Just like we have a change control system on our project, we want to have a contract change control system so that we know what the process is and we know what paperwork, what tracking we need to do, what dispute resolution, and what approval levels are needed. So we want to make sure that we have a change control system written into our original contract. For example, I consulted with the sister of a friend of mine and her husband. They had gone into a business with some people, and there was no contract of any kind. So I talked them into consulting with a friend of mine who is an attorney. And the attorney is telling them, well, so you're screwed. It's a handshake deal. You got no recourse. I hate when that happens. All right. I promised I would tell you who was the entrepreneur that went through all of that.
You.
No. It was Donald Trump. That was his first deal.
That's what I was gonna say.
Well, look,
I thought his first deal was he got money from his dad to start that company to re-renovate the hotel.
I don't know. That's how the story came down to me. Maybe he did, maybe his dad did front him the money to renovate the hotel. I don't know. Obviously, what I told you is a very simplified story,
Yeah.
right? Because all of that had to stretch out over months, maybe even years of work. All right, well, thank you very much. We will have class on Wednesday at 3:30. Let me emphasize the 3:30
On Wednesday or
portion.
Thursday?
Thursday, yes, comes back to me now, Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday, and then we promise we'll stop.
Okay.
All right,
And I will be here at 3:30.
I know I can count on you, not like those others. All right,
I have a question.
yes,
And
ma'am.
you might have talked about this while I was not here, but our projects,
Yes, ma'am.
when are they due?
I am going to work up an end of semester schedule. But the week before finals is the traditional time to have your project done and present it to the class.
So that brings me to my next question. Do we have finals?
We will have a final in this class,
Okay.
yes.
Hey Rebecca, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in class lately.
Find out my work of scheduling interviews and
Yeah. How are you doing in school? How's your classes going?
it's going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's good. I know. I can't wait. I'm like, 3 more weeks. 3 more